Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm super excited to dive into today's conversation with my lovely friend, Twyla Jones. Twyla was on one of our very first podcast episodes, and I'm super, super excited to welcome her back and catch up because it's been almost 3 years, which is crazy. Now, Twyla is a Kansas-born biologist turned photographer and educator, now calls the picturesque East Coast of Florida home where she raises her 3 wild boys. With a passion for inspiring fellow creatives to uncover their own distinct paths of success, Twyla generously shares her worldview and expertise. She founded Emotional Storytelling, a platform providing community, education, and resources for photographers, and co-founded the Traveling Dress Collective. Twyla's emotive directing style helps her shape her portfolio that delves into the human experience. She understands the challenges of monetizing artistic expression and strives to guide photographers in transcending self-imposed limitations, allowing their unique voices to emerge. Through her teachings in intuitive posing, eye-catching editing techniques, and transformative mindset shifts, Twyla empowers photographers to create more meaningful and rewarding work that captivates audiences and leaves a lasting impact. She's also one of the coolest people I know. So without further ado, here is my dear friend Twyla. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I can't believe it's been 3 years.
Isn't that nuts? Like it was like right before the pandemic that we launched the podcast, and we were just like, we had no idea. Like no idea.
We're like all completely different people now.
Seriously, right? Completely different. So tell me something amazing. What's amazing that's going on in your world right now?
Probably my definition of amazing is not the same as people, but so the most fun thing that I'm doing right now is relaunching my editing course.
Yep.
I like this stuff. I do this because I'm like really, really into this stuff and interested in it, but I'm moving platforms and doing it in a way like adding gamification and badges and surprise and delight, all of that kind of stuff, fun stuff. And just really kind of thinking more about like creating immersive experiences like across platforms, but that bleed into real life as well.
Yep.
That sounds like, I don't know.
I don't know. You're just talking my language. I love it. So what platform are you going with?
Kajabi. I've been on Teachable for a long time. Yeah. And it just provides like a better experience and looks nicer. And that's just so important to me. Like I couldn't get very excited about updating stuff or even designing, you know, like a module with Teachable. Sorry, Teachable. Like they were good to me, but you know, so anyway, I don't know, just moving to Kajabi has me very excited about it. And it's important. I'll talk about this later probably, but that I have some kind of like novelty incorporated within whatever I'm doing, or it can kind of get boring to me. And so I'm thinking about that as part of the student experience as well. So needing this to be like adding the things like gamification into lessons and achievements and stuff. Just thinking of ways to just make this a lot more fun so that you actually just like learn in ways that empower you.
It's
so you know, just thinking about stuff like that is
I love it because I love it. It was funny because you mentioned that because in the shower this morning I was thinking about like how could like with retreats and stuff and gamification and like just helping students learn, you know, like how can we help our students get the results that they want and learn? Like
well, and also beyond that, beyond even just the learning is the experience. And how can we make these like experiences and help cultivate like connection, which I think is just ultimately what anybody is really after, just in this experience of like being alive. And so we do need to meet again. We should plan something because I got some ideas, some weird ideas, but that are just like completely immersive in the experience design. So it's experience design is what this rabbit hole I'm just deep into. And it's just so fun to think about because you think about everything from the very beginning to like literally when they're traveling to get to the retreat, how can you create an experience out of that and give them things that are just kind of like adding into it and make it feel something that is just like completely special, unique, like customized and magical in some like very weird way, like an experience you could not get anywhere else. You know, you create this whole different like world or something. It's
I
a
love
lot,
that so
but
much because, you know, it's so funny with like the photography industry. Like, because you really like you hear a little bit about that, but I was like, I think what could we do if we really put our noodles together and like gamified and changed up how the client experience looks for our photography clients in that kind of way too. Where it's like they are obviously only ever going to pick you because you have created um, that just that life-changing experience for them. And it's just like I just think it's so fascinating. Like there's like we could go so much deeper.
I know. It's like we need a series or something. Like I'm already just, I can feel those rabbit holes like tugging at me just as we
I
already
know.
get into these topics. And to add on to that, because I know that we are going to be talking about AI a lot,
Yeah.
that is the significance and that is where you like truly shine and actually why it's so amazing. But I think it just really helps shift the importance of creating experiences for people that are like real so that it's almost like your photos become secondary in a way because you created such a unique like space for people
Yep.
to connect or have this experience. Like that was the number one. And
Yeah.
now they also have these photos to remember it by. Now they're super attached to these photos because it was something real that they want to remember, opposed to this thing that we just like faked kind of.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, you'll see people making their profile photo some iPhone shot they took that's not even in focus. And you're like, what? I just took these amazing photos for you, but it holds significance in another way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I love that you brought up AI because you and we've had a few conversations about it, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's so fascinating. But what I actually find so fascinating is the fear around the AI and that it's going to replace photographers, because I completely
Mm-hmm.
disagree with that. Um, but there is so much fear that photographers really forget what it is we do. It's not just holding the camera and
Yes.
taking the picture and editing the photo. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's how you make people feel and like
Mm-hmm.
your magic. And I just find it just like I'm just like, don't worry, you guys. Like AI is not you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, it's kind of like that becomes the problem when you start trying to focus on I want to be a better photographer. So how can I pose exactly like this person? How
Yeah.
do I like get better at editing just like this person? Or like if I just had these presets or whatever. But it's actually just so much deeper than that. It's not about like the poses, the prompts, and all of that. It's about like the vision and the connection and the way you're connecting with other people and allowing yourself to show up as you, just the way you are, not thinking you need to put on some kind of like even performance for posing a family, you know,
Yes.
but like really kind of showing up as yourself so that you have this like connection to your creativity and you're able to create in the moment inspired by them and where you are and create this just experience so that it's not just like this list of stuff that you're checking off because when you make it so mechanical it's you it's replicatable, like you
Yeah.
can duplicate this experience and then in that way it becomes something where AI, sure, so it's
Yeah.
the same thing as like if somebody painted a photo of me, I would love that, you know, me and my kid, I would love that, but it's not the same as somebody that also takes a photo of me, maybe even in the same pose. But that was real. And that was me and my kid
Yeah.
experiencing something. And it is like a token, a souvenir of that real experience, you know,
Yeah.
not just me like maybe like looking good in a painting or something. And then that's where AI could,
Yeah.
you know, just really replicate something in a very real way. And so it really is leaning more into that experience and the connections you're
Hmm.
helping create for people. And using that in your client communication and across
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. It's funny because what it reminds me a little bit? It's like, like when you buy like a picture frame and there's like a family in there and you don't just like display the picture frame with that family in there because it doesn't mean anything to you,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Yeah.
need to put what you love in there. And I kind of
Hmm.
feel like AI, like I've seen some where people were like, yeah, like here is a picture of a baby and like give some newborn photos, which honestly, like to be honest, AI needs some work because do you know who Salad Fingers is? Like all the fingers are like salad fingers. It's terrible. It's terrifying. Like,
Have you
it's
ever,
like,
I know, so like in some of the earlier versions of Midjourney, the teeth, like you would get 100 teeth in a mouth. Like
yes, it's the
it's
best.
getting so much better as they like
So
keep
much better.
updating. The fingers are so much better. The teeth are so much better. But sometimes I'll accidentally be in like an older version and then you just get those like
Yeah.
it's like a face should be here
Yes.
or it's like very tiny or just disappeared. They're just very creepy, but
Super
in a
creepy.
way that I also like. I don't know. I
I
just
think
like
it's I
strange
think it's
things.
hilarious. Like I just
Yes.
get such delight. I was like, good try. Like you're funny. Right? Like it's like getting a 5-year-old to draw a quesadilla or something, right? Like it's hilarious, right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So we have both, because on the topic of AI, we've both been playing with AI so much. Um, so I think like it's fascinating that it can be used as a tool. Now you actually had a fellow come onto your page. I think it was for Aftershoot. Now, can you share a little bit what Aftershoot is and how it uses AI, and how it can help photographers in that kind of way?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's kind of like the thing I always needed as an overshooter. Just, the decision fatigue that comes with going through so many photos is can be overwhelming. And I've tried to develop lots of different workflows as far as culling goes to address that for myself. And I probably the last year or so, I started using stacks more in Lightroom. So stacking lots of photos that were similar, just kind of like I don't have to think going into Lightroom. I'm just going to stack all this stuff. And then I could see this big picture of what I actually created. I could see a representation of each individual thing that I considered different, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Um, and so Aftershoot actually can do that automatically. So already saving all of that time. And you can set up different ways of allowing it to do that. So getting into like the AI calling part. So I can tell it how lenient I want it to be in what it's kind of considering like a stack. Or they're
Mm,
calling it like these are duplicates. So you've got a photo and then these are all the duplicates. So how picky do I want it to be? Do I want it to have to be exactly like I'm still looking this way and like smiling, or could I be like this, but most everything else is pretty similar. um and so you can play around with stuff like that to get better results, and basically the idea is to get more or less photos to have to go through yourself at the end. And it's also using AI to pick out the best photo from this stack of duplicates and bring it to the top. And so now, just like with a click of a button, it can go through this whole session, and then you can really kind of like see what you got to work with. And then it also is basically like categorizing different things. So it's going to pull out all of the images that seem to be unintentional closed eyes. So now
mm,
we can just go into that, the unintentional closed eyes, and see, were there actually some of these where it didn't get it right? I want these added back. And then it's also going to categorize blurry images. So now I can go into that and say, are some of these intentional artistic blur or like
yeah.
unintentional that looks cool?
Right.
I'm going
I
to
can get
add
away
those
with
back to
it.
my
I can get
selections.
away with
Yeah.
it, Blur.
Yeah. And so, exactly. Oh, that's what I could make this black and white. And like, that's fine. I'm going to add a lot of green. That I meant to do that. This is my style. um, so, but also as you're doing that, it is learning your preferences. So now we can go through everything that it selected and the ways that it grouped it, and it said this was the best, but you're like, no, this one's the best. Switch it. This one was the best. Switch it. So it's a little bit of work in the beginning to really
Mhm.
get it customized to your taste, especially because my biggest concern, as somebody that's more of an emotive photographer that wants those photos of you walking away from the camera. I don't want you to look at me and smile. I was kind of afraid that those would be the defaults, but what it's going through is what you did. It's going through what you created and showing you, I think this is the best. I think this is what you meant to do here. Basically, this looks like the best version of whatever you were trying to do. Because I've heard a lot of concerns from photographers, like it could never replace the way I call, or it's like I'm gonna miss out on that like award-winning shot or whatever. But it's not. It's still showing you everything that you did. It's just grouping it together and kind of making it a lot easier for you, because it's still a collaboration. You still have to like tell it and pick, but it cuts down so much time. And just having those shots grouped together, I was doing that manually, either with stacks or using survey mode to call in Lightroom, so I could just kind of see everything together and then try and pick out what I thought was the best. So to have it kind of say, here's an educated guess, or based on your past like preferences, like we think you're gonna like this one. And so that's just so nice. And I'm just excited to see it develop and get better and better. And I know that they've got all kinds of like cool updates and stuff coming up. So I don't know. It's really fun to play with. Yeah.
I downloaded so I downloaded a trial a couple months ago, and I forgot to cancel the trial. So I ended up paying for a year, which is like no big. So I was like, I'll probably do that anyway because it sounds like it's so good, right? And then I started diving into it. But I'm actually not a Lightroom user, but I did see you could take past Lightroom galleries and like load 5,000 in there, and it can learn your editing style. And I was like, that is cool.
Yeah. So, and I couldn't believe how good it was. So for the AI editing, because what I did was I have this catalog, and I'm kind of always optimizing and playing with new strategies, workflows, whatever. So as much as I will tell you, it's so good to have a consistent way of flagging your images, mine just keeps evolving, and it just feels like I'm doing work for my course. Let me try it this way, So anyway, so my concern, what held me back from getting started on that editing part, was that I felt overwhelmed about going through and picking actual images that represented my imaging style or my editing style, or like, how am I going to go through and find which ones were done or the best of like everything that I did. But what I did was I found some ways to create some smart collections in Lightroom that would sort of like kind of just capture everything. What I ended up using was anything cropped and anything with a color edit. And so it put those in a folder for me, because if I've cropped it, I probably was pretty much done with this edit, right? That was like my qualifier.
So is it like, are these like things that you have already edited in Lightroom, or are these like JPEG finished files that you've imported back into it?
Yeah, so these are raw files, like a complete edit.
Okay.
Because also I have, I'll do Photoshop edits, so those come back in, but those are like TIFFs. And so those aren't going to be helpful to me in building an AI profile that needs to learn this was the raw image and this is what you chose to do with it. And so, and then it actually is better if you have a range of different kinds of photos. So not even your best work. How are you handling it when these lighting conditions were not ideal? And then what are you doing? So it wants like a lot of stuff. So anyway, I really was like, I just need to get started on this. Like, let's just like start somewhere and see what it gives me. And so I made that, and I just didn't want to go through every single one. So I'm like, that's probably good enough. So definitely there are probably some where I was playing around with edits, but not fully finished. Anyway, so I did it, just so pleasantly surprised with how good and right on, and just what a good starting point it was giving me. And a big thing for me photographing at the beach often is like they're all crooked. And so that's why the crop thing ends up being helpful for me, because I have to straighten almost anything. So you can have it auto straighten, you can have it auto crop even. And then it's just so good at like hitting the exposure and white balance for me, because I also underexpose a lot.
Yeah.
because I want the skies and the images just very colorful images. So if anything's going to be white, I got to underexpose for whatever that's going to be. And so calling can be difficult because I can't see actually what's in the image a lot of times if it's too underexposed. So that also has just been incredibly helpful to have it get pretty accurate exposures and white balances for me. If that's all it did, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I'm waiting for your AI workflow course to come out that I will be taking.
I need to do that. Yeah.
Have you played a lot with ChatGPT at all?
Oh my God.
I'm obsessed with it.
We are best friends. We are best friends. I feel like I'm an overwhelming person when I have ideas about something or when I'm excited about something new. Like I can be overwhelming. And so yes. And so it's been really nice to be able to just write these like run-on sentences like you've never seen before, because it's just like spitting out all the ideas. Like I want it to be this, or like developing an idea where like I want this to feel like this, and I like this specifically. Like I just love something about cults, but it's like I don't want to have an actual cult. And I was trying to distinguish this feeling where it was like I want to have a cult, but I don't want to be the one people worship. I want it to be more like worshiping each other, like celebrating each other, cultivating this like connection thing. And so it was really just like, I was just like writing out all these like wishes about something that I would really want to like just do for, the community I've like cultivated so far.
Yeah.
And thinking about like real life experiences and stuff. And so getting to put all of that in and tell it like, and I also like this, and I like this, and I hate this. What? Can you make sense of this? What does this mean? What do I actually want? And then what it gave me was just like, yeah, it is. Like, that is. So just synthesizing my thoughts for me and just sort of making sense for them was just so incredible.
Yeah.
And to know that it's not, I mean, of course it's like bias off of like the data that it's been like, I don't know, like learning from and understanding it. This is just like a language model. It's just predicting words basically. But to know that it's just different talking to a person who's going to have their own kind of like biases and things like that. And being able to talk to it in a way, so kind of like as a people pleaser or whatever, not wanting to tell somebody something that might hurt their feelings. Like, I don't like that idea or something. Like, I can just tell it, like, that was terrible. That is not a good idea at all. I hate that. And then give it feedback. So I think in a way it's making me a better communicator.
Yeah. I love that. It's so funny. I have been using it for like I get a little bit of writer's block. And so I find just like plugging in, like, give me like XYZ ideas about blah, 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 blah. And then it spits out all these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my juices are flowing. I'm not taking what it's writing verbatim, but I'm using it as a tool, as a starting point to like unleash my own creativity.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's what in general I like about AI. It gives you new jumping off points. So I can describe, even with the image creation, I can describe a feeling I want to visualize, or kind of give it some elements I want incorporated and see where it gets. So we're almost like collaborators. Like, where does this take you? And then it's like, I didn't think of that, but that kind of like, that is the essence of this also. So now I'm going to jump off from here. Or when you have an idea about maybe a session or styling for a session, sometimes just trying to like tell somebody that isn't going to be, they're not going to get the same picture in their mind as you. So being able to create visualizations to share with like the subjects that you're photographing, or just collaborators in any kind of way. Like, I have this idea for this thing, and this is sort of like where I'm going. Like, this is what it's going to like look, feel like, whatever. What do you think? Can get anybody else like on board or more excited, or even just help them go to the thrift stores and buy the pieces that are similar to the styling, Yeah. So I've done that for mood boards for photo shoots lately. But yeah, the same thing with ChatGPT, just kind of like putting these ideas into it, seeing where it goes, or even asking it to interview you. I think
Yeah.
just like the
Oh.
clarity it can give me when I am sometimes overwhelmed with too many thoughts, ideas, or whatever, or it's like, I know the feeling of this, but like, help me, how can I communicate it like more efficiently, you
Mm.
know?
It's like a little AI therapist.
Also,
Well, it's funny because we were like last week we were talking about I guess what is it called? Generative AI that is in the new
mm,
basic Photoshop download, which is so cool. Oh my gosh. So yesterday I was editing and I was like, for the love, Lisa, I didn't change this little boy's shoes. And I have him in this like antique outfit that's super vintage. I just plugged in, I just lassoed it, plugged in like rustic old-fashioned boots. It like what? It was flawless. Like flawless.
it's incredible. Well, and so I had an interesting talk with somebody in my DMs. So the other day I made some like funny videos about it.
Oh, right? They were
You know,
hilarious.
like give me a flock of birds, and it was this giant
It
pelican.
screws up
Um,
birds every time. It's like, what, give me the little birds in the distance.
except the first time I used it, it was perfect,
What?
and I was like, yeah. And now it is not. I don't know what happened, but so anyway, I had just shared like, how it works, and then I did another one that was just kind of like fails. Like every
Yeah.
time it was me just like trying again, and me like, how can I see this better so maybe I'll get a better result? All right, let's try like some. I just want to add something to this. So anyway, it was funny and just a lot of like mess ups, but anyway, they were really concerned about creators showing this, like, and showing how it works and how easy it is, because now their clients are going to expect them to be able to do this for them. And it's just like, it's, we've always been able to do what it's
Yeah.
allowing us to do right now. It just took us a long time. And our clients thought it was this easy. So it just is now. It just is
Yeah.
as easy as everybody always thought it was when they
Yeah.
said, you could just Photoshop that out, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
Actually,
just
I can.
Photoshop.
I can remove that
What do you
car.
want? What, you want a hippo there? Do you want
I can
like
remove your ex-husband. It's fine.
whatever you want? Yes. And especially that, like with the shoes and stuff, because that would be laborious. And that would be like,
Right?
I have to go find the shoes that I would want to put on him, resize them, just sort of like also as his feet change, like it just would have been so much work. And now
Yeah.
it's just so much
I
easier.
just think
So,
it's if you
yeah.
can, why not? It's like, you know what I imagine? You remember like when, so back in like probably like the 1950s when people started getting those cake mixes on in the store, you could get a cake mix. And like the outcry there must have been when like people were like, oh my gosh, that's not a cake. You can't,
That's so funny. I
everybody
have
can make a
thought of
cake.
so many instances where this is like, where people really do seem like nervous, scared
Yeah.
about, it being replaced or whatever. And I know that's where like questions like that come from, concerns like that. They're just, afraid. But it's like when we went from film cameras to digital cameras, like,
Yeah.
everybody was like, that's not real photography, whatever. But there are still people today that value film
Yes.
photographs and
Absolutely.
will pay top dollar to have you because you can do that over digital. And it's the same thing as like right now, like I've always been adding shit to my images. I've always been adding some birds and some sun, whatever. Like I
Yeah.
like
I'm a
doing that.
compositor. That's who
Yes,
I
and it's
am.
not and it's
Right.
not like I am, I don't know. I just feel like it kind of adds to this thing, but that is my style,
Yeah.
and I don't think that it's like there's any confusion about that or what you would expect when you get from me. But when you're a different type of photographer that like you are like documentary, like that's already in
Yeah.
the way that you talk about your work, and that is very present with your clients, and they're drawn to you for that. And also my clients are not coming to me because I can put some birds in an image,
Mm-mm.
like I think most of the time it's like, I mean, if I'm doing it right, it's like I hope we get some birds,
Yeah.
but it's not like they're hiring me just because. If I never put birds in an image again, I would hope that the value in what I'm actually doing as far as like photographing their connection with each other and the emotions I choose to show, that's why they want to hire me, not because of
Yeah.
any of the extra stuff. It's almost like the extra stuff is for me. All right.
Yeah.
you know, so it really is kind of connecting back to what is actually valuable about what you're providing to your clients and the experience you provide, not about all of that other stuff. If you're into all that other stuff, it's way faster to do now. It's
Yeah.
way easier to do now. And I like it because this idea of like kind of gatekeeping around information, or you know, the need to have lots of money to learn how to do certain things from courses or whatever, I love that that is not a barrier anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and because I got another message about that too, just like now everybody's going to be as good as anybody. I'm like, awesome, because what that allows is more creative expression. It doesn't mean anybody's going to be doing what you're doing. They don't have to. Like
No.
now they're free to just like think things and make them, you know?
Totally.
And
Instead of
not so
everybody
caught up in
trying
the
to fit
technical
in,
parts of
like
it.
instead of everybody trying to fit in, like it's okay to stand out in a different way, figure out where you can stand out, you know, like it's really cool. It's a really neat time to be an artist, I think.
Me too. I just love it. I'm like, let's update today. What can we do today?
I know I
What's
know
new?
it's like there a new update. I'm like checking for updates. I'm like,
Yeah.
am I going to buy this? Like, do I need to buy this? I'll buy it now. So I know you've actually taken a big step back from client work and having a bit of a reset like I am. Now, can you share maybe why sometimes it's essential for our creativity to take these rests when we're feeling uninspired and burnt out?
Well, and I think for me specifically, it was like a lot of burnout, trying
Yeah.
to do all of the things at once. And when you do that, you definitely can set yourself up for failure as you start, I don't know, like falling behind, not doing as good as you thought you should have. I don't know. And then I don't know, that can definitely get you into a place like mentally that's not very good. And I think me specifically, I was really noticing like my perfectionism really showing up, and all of a sudden things were taking me a really really long time to get through, and I was
Yeah.
just kind of like unsatisfied with the results I would end up even after spending all of this time doing things. So that was difficult and just really kind of hard to figure out. But I think it's this thing you're not always conscious of about like how you're talking to yourself when things like that happen. And I heard the best analogy the other day, and I shared it with my son, who also, you know, experiences this. I mean, he's only 10, but he will just believe bad things about himself, you
Mhm.
know, maybe because of an experience at school with another kid, or because he didn't do good at something. And that has been the best kind of like mirror almost, because
Mm.
so many times I catch myself trying to help him, and it's like you're talking to yourself. Like you also need to say that to yourself because you're doing the same thing to you, you know? But it's like almost so easy to see when it's
Yeah.
anybody else, you know? So anyway, the analogy is that you are not your thoughts, of course. We know this, but like, do we? So you can think a thing, and these thoughts just pop in, but you're more like the observer of the thoughts, the consciousness.
Yeah.
And so this is similar to Woody in Toy Story. So Woody comes pre-programmed with these things that he says. So you can pull his string, or like the idea is he could pull his string or somebody else could pull his string and make him think this thought, this pre-programmed thought. So if somebody said something to me, that would be like them pulling my string, and now I'm thinking these bad things about myself. And so acknowledging that this is like this programming that you develop, you know, through society, interactions on social media, when you start comparing your work to somebody else's, when you give any kind of weight to a negative thing that's said to you, those sort of just create more of the same types of thoughts. And so
Mhm.
acknowledging that this isn't real, like this is here, but I didn't put that there. Would I choose to
Yeah.
think that? Would I choose to think that like for somebody else? And like definitely not. And so the idea that you can just choose
Yeah.
which ones you're thinking on, which ones you are giving any kind of like time to, which ones you want to kind of like replicate over themselves. And so I think if you start to get into like a bad place like that, where it's just like, what's the point? I'm just adding to the noise almost, you know.
Yeah.
I think taking a time out to just really kind of evaluate what is going on in your mind
Hmm.
and what it is you're kind of needing to get into a better place, and recognizing when it is maybe like negative thought patterns like that, and just really kind of realizing you can take control over that and choose to just think new thoughts for yourself. And that was something I had been trying to communicate to my 10-year-old for a long time. But that analogy of the pull string, there's a snake in my boots, like, he's so much more magical than a
Yeah.
doll that says there's a snake in my boots, and he can
Yeah.
create and, you know, just like make change, be brave, all of these sorts of things. He's so much more than these like pull string thoughts. So now, with my son, I just, anytime he starts doing that, I say, there's a snake in my boot. And he's just like, you're right. And it just worked. And I'm like, that's amazing. And so I just need to be saying that to myself a little bit more often, but also really recognizing when it's somebody else pulling that string too. Like,
Yeah.
what led me here?
Yeah. Why
How
am
did
I
I
being
get
triggered?
here?
Like, what's triggering me,
Yes.
right? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to like cut that little loop off.
Mhm. I love that. You know what's funny is that's so funny that we're talking about this because this morning I was in bed. I woke up early and I was reading Gabby Bernstein's Super Attractor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part in there where she's talking, it's like this three simple thing about mind management. And I'm going to butcher it. But, and it was funny because I actually changed the term so I would remember. And it was OAR. And it's observe. So observing your thoughts and the thoughts you're thinking. Assess. So what does this thought mean to you? How is it making you feel? And redirect. So redirecting that thought. If you change that thought to something else, how is that going to change your life? How is it going to change how you're feeling? And I was like, this is good. This is
Mm-hmm.
good, right? Like just like because it was something that we are never really taught how to do is that we are the thinker of our thoughts. And just because you have a thought about something doesn't mean you have to believe it,
Yeah.
right? It
Like
doesn't
it,
mean it's even
you can't
true.
think like this is magically here for a reason. You know,
No,
it just isn't. Like, they're not all good thoughts. Like, all the
no.
ones that cross your mind are not worth like thinking about. When when you also recognize, if I choose to go down this like rabbit hole with you, thought, where is that going to lead, you
Yeah,
know? And so I think I will just choose a different one today.
totally. Or even like, what is the best possible thought that I could think around this?
Yes, yes. And just imagining alternatives. What if I
Yeah,
believe the other one? What actions does that lead to? Because it all starts with the thoughts. Like, that's where your actions come from. Like, the next thing that you do comes
yeah.
from. It's even the idea of, you know, like with body image, like thinking,
Hmm.
oh, if I was like thinner or looked better, then I could wear these clothes that help me express myself better. And then I would feel like going out, and then I could have fun with people. And that all stemmed from a thought that like, I don't look good in these clothes I wish
Hmm.
I could wear.
Yeah,
And so if you just change that, like,
yeah.
you could wear those clothes right now in a different size, and you still have the ability to go do all of those things that you are like keeping from yourself because of this one messed up thought. Like, where did that
Yeah.
even come from?
Right? And that's
Yeah.
not even true. Like, why are you choosing to even believe it? You know,
Mhm.
it's
And would
funny.
you believe that for somebody else?
Yeah.
Would you say that out loud to anybody else?
No. Like
We're just so awful to ourselves.
we're so awful. What's been really fascinating for me is so last year I got diagnosed with a thyroid disorder and it was causing me to gain weight. And no matter what I was doing, I just couldn't shake it. I was like super low calorie. I was working out every day, going to yoga. And no matter what I did, I just kept gaining more and more weight. So finally I went to a new doctor, went to a naturopath, and she finally put me on some new medication. Well, since January, I've lost almost 40 pounds. And it's been fascinating because along the way, I was like, you know what? Regardless of how I'm feeling and how I'm looking, I am going to show up 100% to how I want to look. And instead of waiting until I was at a like ideal size or whatever goal weight or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, if I ever get there, I don't really know. Um, I have shopped and dressed my body in such a loving way throughout this whole process that even if I were to like that has been more transformational for me than actually losing anything. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just because you're celebrating yourself through like regardless.
Well, and I think also sometimes it can still be hard to find the motivation to do that. But if you recognize that just the act of you doing that, you showing up the way that you are, as imperfect as you may believe you are, and showing that you're celebrating and expressing yourself in whatever size, like however you are like physically manifesting right now, empowers other people to be able to do it, because you are showing yourself as the example. Like when they see, oh, I could be like look at them, like, and I think that they're so beautiful, and I see them enjoying themselves like just like that, and I see me in that, that empowers others to be able to do it. And that's like how culture is created, like that's how society is created. And so when we let ourselves hold ourselves back out of like fear or just anything like that, we're feeding into this idea that we all have to look perfect before we can have fun, before we can be happy, before we can have like all these friends, or before we can go dance on the dance floor, and just how awful.
Stop playing small.
Mm-hmm.
Shine your light, friends.
Yeah.
Right? In your life, and even like in your art. Like I think it's so easy as an artist to play small too, because
Mm-hmm.
doing something that may be fringe or like something out there, and you're just like, I don't know, like how is the world going to take this? Like I think that there is such a cognitive dissonance, like because you want to stand out and you want to fit in. And as an artist, it really, you can get stuck there. Like you almost like put yourself
Mm-hmm.
inadvertently in a box.
Yeah.
How do you, because you're someone who really is an expert at creating without fear, I feel. Like when I see your work, I'm like, man, like I just love that your freedom around your art. How, like, what advice do you have for maybe someone that has that fear?
Um, well, I think, for me, it was really kind of recognizing, I think it kind of goes back to like boredom again. Like,
Hmm.
and I recognize that myself. It hurts to do the same thing twice. Even though sometimes that means like I'm gonna have to take the longer way around or whatever. But and maybe it's too a little bit of the like I just want to be adding something. I don't just want to like feed into the noise of like creating the same photo over and over
Mm.
again is a little bit what it feels like to me. And it just needs to be this authentic expression of creation. And I think I have just really like that is one thing that is easy for me is creating, but it's I think maybe a bit of like I recognize that the creating happens in the moment. You can't, and we I just did that course for you, and that's
Yes.
really like my message. Like you do not have to like go study other work. You don't have to
Mhm.
write a list of poses and prompts and all of that. If you would allow yourself to be fully present in this moment that's been created for you to create, recognize that you're a creator because you're good at creating. You don't do that beforehand. Like let yourself create right now so that you can kind of like see it. I don't know. And you feel the emotions that you want to convey in these images. And for me, kind of like tapping into that feeling, what do I want this to feel like right now? That's where the visions come from, and that's how it's created, but it's
Mhm.
inspired by where I am and who I'm with. And I have to be fully present in order for that to happen. I've tried other kinds of ways, and I think that's important too, to try all these kinds of ways to find out what works for you and what doesn't. And the times that I've tried to take like a list of poses to intentionally create a story, or like the trick where you take pictures on the back of your camera so you can like quickly reference as you're going through, that took me out of it. Like I was not here with these people anymore. I was preoccupied by what I thought this should look like instead of just being able to see what it looks like,
Yeah.
and like what I have to work with right here, right now. And I think constraints are like invaluable as a creator. When everything's possible, that can bring you to the point of shutdown almost. Like that is overwhelming. But
That's me.
recognizing
Yeah.
your constraints in the moment and like this is what you have to work with, go.
Yeah.
These are the people you have to work with. These are the temperaments available right now. What's the most, and for me, it's like, what's the most emotive story I could tell about this
Yeah.
child crying and his mother's right here and his family's here? Like, what could that look like in the most emotive way? And then
Yeah.
you're kind of able to just, I mean, I don't know. For me, it just feels like everything's inspiring. Everything has the potential to be a different kind of story that I could tell, right here with my camera. And of course, again, and that is like the value you provide as a photographer, the seer, like let yourself see instead of just being caught up here. And I think too, for me, like I feel the most free when I'm doing that. When I am photographing, it is just pure like creation, having ideas, and having these people that are here to help me like implement them. They'll just listen to whatever I say. I just get to make stuff. And that is just so invigorating to me. It's part of like why I cannot stop. You know, like I started bringing lights so I didn't have to stop when the sun went down. And I've said before too, I feel like I black out. So it's like I'm so fully present. I am just like lost in it. And I'm like, what just happened? Like, and also, can we stay here forever and keep doing this? Because it is just a different kind of feeling I don't experience when I do anything else. And I'm seeing that too as a person that is definitely like up here a lot. I intellectualize a lot of stuff and I'm just lost in my own thoughts a lot. And so I think it's just such a nice break from that, maybe. Getting to create.
Just to play and create. I think I get to that place sometimes. So what happens for me is I stop myself because I get afraid to take a bad photo. Like the perfectionism starts to win. And I get so in my head that I freeze a little bit that I'm going to take a bad photo. And I'm so deathly afraid of taking a bad photo that I stop myself from being as creative as I can possibly be.
Yeah. And I think another thing I recognized early on was like sometimes I would tell somebody to do something and it was like not a good idea. Like, actually, no, that doesn't look good, or it's not like what I thought it would do. And I would like sometimes just keep photographing because I would feel bad, like needing to tell them to do something else. And then when I recognize, like, no, like that's holding you back from getting to do something that you want. But you also had to try that. You have to try lots of different things to figure it out. And even like in the video I made for you, like that happened. I had this idea about this like lifeguard tower that was going to be really cool. And I have this whole family go up there and stuff. And I get up there, I'm like, oh, I went down and I like kind of tried it again. I'm like, this like really wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but that's so important. I mean, there were some like, I ended up liking them a little bit, but I had to like try it to know. And that's what it looks like every single time. I'm always trying lots of different stuff, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But if I stopped, I'd stop growing. And sometimes the bad idea inspires the next good idea. That didn't work, but I can take this little piece from it. Or like next time I go, now I know it doesn't work on the lifeguard thing, but now I've got a better idea about what might work better,
I love that. It's so true.
And I also recognize too that it's never happened that I've never had enough photos to give to somebody. So I have room to make mistakes and take bad photos because I'm overwhelmed with photos to give. So I've got room to like make mistakes here, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And also I would rather underwhelm them with my performance as a photographer in the moment, and then for them to say like, when did you get that? Or like, I can't believe this is what you like created from that, or whatever. And just kind of like just wowing them in the end with the results. Yeah.
I love that. So you ready for our lightning round?
Oh, okay.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl. Sometimes morning person though. I go through phases. This is not I can't do a lightning round. Sometimes I wake up and go watch sunrise every day at the beach, and then that turns off, and then I'm just up till like 4 every night. I can't. I don't know.
Yeah, both. I go through phases of both. Like the other weekend, I went to bed at 10:30 and I slept until 11, and I was like, who am I? And then then like 2 days later, I was like, I'm up at 5 a.m. Like I'm gonna do some yoga, and I'm like, I don't know who you are, girl. I don't know.
No.
I'm both.
Okay, I'm going to try to lightning round now. All right.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
A mermaid and then an advertiser.
Side note, have you watched the new Netflix mermaid show?
No, but I've heard like everything amazing about it.
You should watch it. I watched it last night.
I'm going to.
Go-to song that lifts you up when you're down.
I'm weird. I listen to like a lot of melancholy stuff. It's like I feel this way and I want to feel this way even
Yeah,
more. Ooh, Kesha praying. That would be like I go there, yeah.
that's a good
hmm
one.
hmm
Oceans or mountains and why?
Oceans, because they are like safer. I was thinking about little kids and where they can have the best time, and where like if everybody's safe, I feel more freedom to create
Yeah,
instead of like mom kicking in also, and now I also have to keep you safe, so I can just do more. I have more space to like move around and explore. And I do
love
love the
that.
mountains also. They could
When
be
do
in
you
the
feel
background of the ocean. That would be ideal.
when do you feel most authentically yourself?
When I'm taking of
Yeah.
people.
What is something you've accomplished as an adult that your younger self would be proud of?
Well, I got like really poor, so probably buying a house that I bought all by
Mm,
myself. And that I think our ideas of money are different. Well, and I'm from a very small town in Kansas, so $100,000 would have been like a mansion. So to
yeah,
like, I mean, I just never thought that that would be something I could do. Yeah.
I love that. Where can our listeners learn more from you?
Um, so my website, emotionalstorytelling.com, kind of has is home to a lot of my offerings as far as like education and things that I think are useful, valuable, mindset stuff around being a creative. So there's like a blog, there's courses, there's free resources, all of that. And that also leads into my Facebook community of other photographers. So that would probably be the best place.
I love that. So I love to end my interviews just with this last question, and it is, what are you currently curious about or artistically curious about?
Um, I mean, AI, of course. I'm definitely hyper focused on AI right now, but also video editing, but in a way that it's like, well, creatively too, like creative storytelling and with video editing, but also in making better educational videos. I think it's just such a great skill, and I just want those to feel creative but be helpful and just really kind of cater to like obviously I have like ADHD, and so I want to be able to like cater to other people that also have that, and that comes in creating really kind of compelling, interesting videos. So that I feel like that's what I'm really focused on trying to learn a lot about right now.
I love that. Well, Twyla, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, I love talking to you.
I love it. I love it so much. We could talk forever.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, my beautiful friends. I hope you have loved this conversation just as much as I did. I am sending you so much of my light and my love today and every single day. We will see you next time.